the best you nation. My name is Adler, and this is Finn.
What's happening, guys?
So, today we have a pretty fun and lighthearted topic today. And the reason why I say it's kind of lighthearted is because you don't really think about this, but Finn only has a vague idea of what we're going into, so he's kind of going in blind a little bit. But I'm gonna steer us to where we need to be and the conversation that I think that we should be having. So, without any further ado, we'll try to jump into it. Obviously, if this is your first time watching the show, like, share, and subscribe, please. Available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And
Yes.
we have social media platforms. You can reach us any point in time. But I just had to take that side commercial for just a moment. And now that we've got that out of the way, so Finn, let me talk to you about something that is pretty interesting, actually. When it comes to potential versus talent. Now, I'm using the word talent for the lack of a better word, but we're going to say potential versus talent just because there's so many other interchangeable words that can go in that place. It could be potential versus skill or potential versus, my mind's going blank right now, but it's still like there's so many different things that can be filled up with that. So in terms of potential versus talent, which one do you find as the most important? Is potential or talent the most important?
Well, it's a good question. Potential and talent. So I feel like they're adversely very different, but also both they can cross each other in a sense. So personally, I think that having potential is more important, or at least more attractive for me personally. And the reason why I say that is because people, when they hear the word potential, that basically means that you believe that this person is capable of reaching a certain threshold or a certain milestone in their journey, their success, their life, whatever it may be. So potential, especially like in the military, just as to give you an example, people get promoted based off of the potential that they have. It's not because of how talented they are, it's because of how much of a potential they have to make a difference. I think when you have the word potential in the scenario, you can actually feel for the idea that this person doesn't have any limits or boundaries that is kind of creating that pressure. I think when you have the word, you said potential versus, I'm drawing a blank too. I think it's just because it's the middle of the afternoon. Talent. You said potential versus talent. So talent is something that you've already
acquired. It could be skill. Yeah,
I
it
think,
could be
well,
talent.
because I think talent is
skill.
something you've already acquired. It's something that you already have. It's something that you already,
Yes,
either you've already,
basically, it's like whether it's naturally born or already honed. Like there is an affinity to something, you know.
Correct. I just think with
right
potential.
now we're.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying this is just in the broadest sense, but we're gonna kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive a little bit later. But
yeah, so I would say
ahead.
potential. I personally believe that potential is an important aspect. I think that definitely stomps the talent or the skill that you may have, and obviously we'll talk about that further on into the episode. But if you're asking me,
So
potential.
This is where now I start to ask a little bit more, right? So we've discussed talent versus potential. Potential is the ability for future growth. Talent is current ability and current growth trajectory, right?
Correct.
So when it comes to people that we love, romantically, platonically, or otherwise, should we lean more on their potential or should we lean more on what currently is in front of us? So, meaning, let's say you have a a friend, let's say, right, and this friend has a lot of potential, gifted with a lot of potential, but doesn't really hone in that potential. And then you have another friend who has a skill, who's currently capable of a lot, but future growth might be a little bit limited. But you know exactly what he brings. You have two friends. Now, of the two friends, which one do you prefer to go into a business with? The one that has potential but doesn't meet the potential, or the one that has a limited amount of skill and is good at what they currently do, but upside in the future isn't as much? Because now we put context to it because we gave you a general idea. Now, how do you feel about it now? I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just saying.
No. I you said it in the beginning. I was not prepared for this at all. Actually, I like the question. So, if I was a boss, or if I was a manager, I should say, I don't like the word boss. If I was a manager or a leader
Okay.
of a organization or a company or of a small business, even, and I was looking to hire somebody, I would go for the person with potential,
Okay.
because
Interesting.
the reason why is that this person still has an opportunity to learn, even though, well, let me ask you this. Did you say that the projection of this person with the potential is not going to go anywhere, or there's a possibility, or
I
how
said
would
that
you?
the potential is very high. However, he does not meet the standard. So, meaning that, like, very skilled, has all the gifts that you could ever ask for, but never does anything to fine tune those gifts, never does anything to fine tune those skills, never does anything to take those that potential to the next level, so that way he can like overall be better, be improve.
Okay.
Things naturally come easily to him, and because they come easy to him, you never see any other shift in gear, as in like a gear higher where he's working in a different level, a different capacity. Versus you have a guy that uh, he he's got a certain skill set. He's really good at that skill set. Doesn't necessarily go out and learn more on that skill set, but or other skill sets, but he's really good at his skill and he's fine tunes it to a T, to the point where he's almost borderline a master at it. So how about this? Let
Well, I
me
mean,
give you. Let me
well, I
give
was
you.
gonna say there's
Let,
just a
let
few
me do.
different things.
Let me do
Okay.
another analogy, right?
Okay.
Let's say you have, for my soccer fans, you have Cristiano Ronaldo. He is talented. He is the talent. And then you have a 15, 16-year-old phenom. Do you pick Christian Ronaldo?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Do you pick him over the 16-year-old phenom? Because initially your thing was potential. This guy has the potential to be better than Ronaldo.
I think that I'm going to stick to my potential. And the
Okay.
reason why is because skill, like you said earlier, is kind of already something you're born with. Something you're skill is something that you've already established, or it's already been either natural born, or you are just really gifted in that one specific thing. and you don't have to put too much effort into it. So if I had somebody, going back to my example of if I was, and I like your example with Ronaldo and the younger soccer player, it's a really good analogy. But I would say that with a person who has potential, the thing is the variables change. You're only providing me with the concept of, first of all, someone who has potential but has everything going for them, but doesn't necessarily have the best outcome versus the person who's skilled, has the knowledge about a specific skill craft, but that person kind of is mediocre or plateaued, and they're not going to do anything grander than they already are in the long haul. I feel like you didn't mention it, so I don't know if this counts to add this, but I would say that with potential, you're able to, the person may not be in the moment ready to learn or understand how to apply themselves, but there's something about when you have potential that means there's that threshold that you can get to, even though regardless of how maybe in the moment you may not be a good soccer player. Let you want to talk the soccer example real quick.
Go ahead.
Lionel Messi was potential. He was that first candidate. Nobody wanted Lionel Messi to play on their team. And I always bash Messi nowadays because, you know, all they talk about on soccer games, on MLS TV, on Apple TV is Messi in Miami, Messi in Miami. Now, granted, besides that, it's just like Tom Brady and the Patriots. He's a very talented guy. He's very good at playing soccer.
Yes.
I'm sure the young guys who are playing with him in Miami are probably like mind blown because they probably saw him play back in the day and they're like, holy crap, I get to play with this guy now, which I can understand that. But Lionel Messi, if you understand his backstory, Messi didn't have much of a story. I mean, besides the fact that he was out there training every single day, he was just a prospect for potential, just like Ronaldo. Ronaldo was, I'm going to throw it back at you, the Ronaldo was that 16-year-old soccer player that someone just happened to see on the field and say, he's all right. He's not like the best, but there's something about him that maybe if he's willing to do it, because the thing is, you can have the influence on somebody and they may not notice it. Maybe they don't have that self-motivation at the very second. So I'm not sure if this is, you're giving me limitations as far as like, you know, down the road.
No, there's no limitations.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no limitations.
Another really good example. So you have Lionel Messi, who was an outlier. He was pretty much, he played in the very, very minimal amounts of time, and he didn't have a lot of exposure to the field to play, but he did a lot of practice. He also, I think, had a birth defect. So they also kind of said, well, he's not going to really make it in the soccer world. He's not going to be a world-class player. And look where he is. You know, potential became skill. But here's where I draw the line between potential and skill, just to come back to that. Skill, you stop. You plateau. You make your way up. Potential is that slope. You go up. And then potential is the slope and skill is the plateau. It's something you've mastered. You're there. You've got it. So the person who's got the potential is the person who's going to be in the uphill slope. And the uphill slope is not ever a straight line. There's jaggeds along the way. It's like this, kind of like the stock market, right? But as it's going up, down, up, down, up, down, it's making an uptrend. Another really famous and well-renowned, we all know who he is if you want to bring it to the NFL side of things. He's retired now, but it's Tom Brady. He's another player that a lot of people looked at it and said, wow, who's this guy? When he was drafted, he was a third-string quarterback on the Patriots. He was sitting on the bench, third or second string, I forget which one, but I know he was one of those two. He wasn't even the primary quarterback, the main quarterback playing
Someone else
that
had
game.
his job.
Yep. He was a nobody. He was potential, but that's why he was the third or second string quarterback. He wasn't the skilled player. The skilled player who plateaued was out. So now you have the guy with potential who could completely fail the game or completely pass the game, making it a win. He came out to be the greatest of all time as far as being in the NFL and recognized around the world. So going
Okay.
back to your question, if I had to be a manager or a leader of a small company and I sat down in front of this person and said, if I had to hire someone based off of their skill that potentially would just plateau versus the person who's, sorry, all these P's and S words, the skilled person, the talent, okay, that is now either given to you or you've already had or you've developed, but there's no grander gear change versus the person who has potential, who could go up and down, have bad days and good days. Taking it's becomes a risk. It's a liability, really. If you think about a person with potential is a liability, and someone who is talented or has skill is an asset. But people don't
So,
realize when you make risky decisions, and
mhm.
you know this because you do this with, and I'm not going to go too far into your finance, but you talk about this with me in the stock market. Your risk sometimes, because of the knowledge right, about the stock market, eventually becomes an asset for you. So what I'm saying is that the potential to make an earning is based off of, not because and you said it yourself, you wouldn't say like you're a Tony Robbins or anybody that's like the pro of the pros of the pros of the stock market, but somebody who has, I would say you're beyond the mediocre knowledge of the stock market, but you are able to make those adjustments, and potential, right, comes from making those. It's possible. It's a 50-50. That's what
Yeah.
I feel like potential is, but that's the game changing part of it. And I don't know if that answers the question.
I mean, yeah. I mean, your answer is potential. You'd rather the person with potential. Um,
Yes.
I think that like I think when you're asking like somebody like the same question, like potential versus talent, I think you also have to factor in time. Time is something that is a huge factor as well, only because I'm a little bit older, and from where I sit, from where I'm at currently in life, potential is nice. It's good, and if honed correctly and worked at, it can turn into skill. It can turn into a talent. However, sometimes what ends up happening is you start to have this idea of potential. And instead of looking at the potential for what it is, you fall in love with the potential. You create this emotional attachment, which creates blind spots, which allows that person who has a ton of potential to either um, underperform or underwhelm. The best example I can think of right now is there's a basketball player. His name is Andrew. He plays for the Golden State Warriors. He was the number one overall draft pick. His projections were super, super high. He had his own team, his own franchise. He never accomplished anything with it. They took him and they said, hey, look, you're not a number one guy. What you are is like a number two, number three guy. You're just a solid B, C player, right? So we're going to run the offense through Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and we just need you to. And that's what they did. And by doing that, he took a step back and he became a champion. Now, the tricky thing is when you're using that same potential versus talent, right? Let's use it in a romantic sense. There, I'm assuming, obviously, I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming that Cassandra had things that were already in place in her personality, who she was, how she thought, that naturally aligned with who you were, how you thought, and what you thought would be beneficial to your life, right? But now, let's say you have another wife candidate, right? And she has tons of potential, but she doesn't ever actually quite meet any of those metrics. Obviously, you're going to pick Cassandra, clearly. I'm also priming you for this because I don't want you to answer this wrong. Uh, you're gonna pick Cassandra because she already has those values and those core values and things that you naturally um, have an affinity to. Versus looking at somebody whose potential is like, oh yeah, she's very, very pretty, very attractive, but outside of that, there's not really else there. Like, you know, there's a she has goals, but she never chases after them. She has uh, days where she just literally lays in bed all day and never gets out of it. Days where she just shuts down and doesn't do much. There's only going to be X amount of time before you, as a person, as a partner, as somebody who's in a relationship with that version, you're going to say, hey, look, you're going to have to start, I don't know, changing things up because your energy, I don't like it. Like, I know that you might be depressed or sad or upset, but you're gonna have to come on. You got to get up. You got to let's do things. Let's get out. Let's take a walk in a park. Let's go have a picnic. Let's go play with the dog. Let's do stuff. And eventually, you're gonna get tired of it because that's what human beings do. And I think that this is the dangerous part, right? I think what ends up happening is a lot of people, especially in a romantic sense, they lean on potential. They see, oh wow, hit this checkbox, this checkbox, this checkbox. Great. I'm dating this guy or I'm dating this girl. And then you're in a relationship for 2 years with somebody that only has potential, that has no skill, no talent, no values that actually line up with what you want, but everything on paper checked off. And you start to realize that time is so precious and you can't just give 2 years of your life to somebody to get to know them. You can't just give 3 years of your life with somebody to get to know them and see, oh, well, if should I marry them or am I going to get married? You have an idea. If you're being honest with yourself, you have an idea from the very jump. When you meet somebody, if it's like, all right, I can see myself talking to this person tomorrow or I can't. And the problem is a lot of society, because they have abandonment issues, because they don't want to be alone, they lean on that potential. And they say, okay, well, he's not bad. I mean, sure, he drinks an excessive amount. And yeah, sure, he yells a little bit. That bad. He's got a job. I think I can make this work. And now you start to get blinded because of the emotions. And so it starts off as a little bit of extra to drink, a little bit of screaming. That screaming turns into one slap. That excessive drinking turns into liver cirrhosis. That excessive drinking turns into using your rent money for um, a good time and partying. And unfortunately, at this stage in my life, I used to think potential was the most important thing for sure. I really did. But now that I'm like, I'm almost mid-30s, and it's kind of like, all right, I don't have time to waste on potential. I need someone that adds value to the life. And this is not like romantically, but this is more so even like in friendships now. It's like, okay, hey, you know, there's one guy that comes to mind. When it was time to go out and to party, this was the guy to hit up. You hit him up every single time, every single night. You're gonna have a blast. You're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna be able to talk to a whole bunch of girls. He's gonna be the life of the party. The problem is, over time, as we started to grow up and started to get into our professions, he still did that every single week, 2, 3, 4 times a week, to the point where he's going to beer pong competitions to try to win rent money. That, to me, that's bizarre. Like, why not just, I don't know,
Yeah.
clock in, clock out, and go get a paycheck the legal way, like to me that doesn't make sense. But over time I had to realize, I was like, man, this guy has so much potential. He's so outgoing. He's so like full of life and vibrance. But I think this is where we have to we have to call it what it is. He's not living up to any of the metrics that we have for him, and he's not living to any of the metrics his parents had for him. He's not living up to any metrics. So it's not to say that we're not friends anymore. It's just like, hey, look, bro, I can't hang out with you like that. Unfortunately, my life is trending and heading in a different direction, and it doesn't mesh with the path that you're on.
So can I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
And so here's my question for you.
Yeah.
Now that you've talked about skill, talent, the potential, you definitely bringing that into perspective. I wouldn't go, okay. So from the beginning of this conversation, so that second question that you asked me, with a person who has potential that may never make it anywhere, does anything with whatever they have going on, and then the person who has talent who is kind of like just plateaued, but not really motivated to make another step in their life. What if we brought a third person into the mix? And
Okay.
the third person is a combination of both.
Okay.
But instead of the person who has potential and instead of the person who has talent, how about somebody who has potential, or that person, the third person would be the person who has potential that, or a potential to that develops into a talent. Does that make
So
sense?
meaning that it's kind of like a healthy balance of both. The person that has talent and is continuing working, and I can use
I think
this.
potential, but I think potential should be a benchmark. It's kind of like what I was saying, mountains, right? You go up a mountain, you go down a mountain. Sometimes you go up a mountain and then you kind of even out for a little bit for a little break, and then you continue going up the climb. If there are people out there, and if you're saying that there's people who have potential and you have that emotional connection, and the person who has a talent, then what I'm more so saying is, could we think that people who have potential in a relationship, friendship, whatever the case may be, sports, since we talked about sports too, that the potential should only be, or could be, I shouldn't say should, it's very condescending, it's like very like, you got to do this, but could be the transition between one talent or skill acquired to the next. Kind of like me becoming an EMT from a transporter. Yeah. I had the potential to be I had a potential to be an EMT. Now that I'm an EMT and I've been doing it long enough, I have this talent to be one. I can assess a patient from walking through the front door, confidently tell you this person's probably going to come in with some kind of CHF, maybe not that I'm able to diagnose, but because I understand what congestive heart failure is, or I can say it is probably this person's got this going on.
There's certain benchmarks that you're capable of identifying because of you've done it for quite some time.
Right. So now that I'm moving on to the next step of becoming a nurse, this is my potential. My potential is no longer becoming an EMT. My potential is now you will potentially be your potential of becoming a nurse is great. So do you think that the individuals that we talked about, the person that has potential but does nothing with it, and the guy that has talent that just kind of stays plateaued and won't do anything different, I personally believe that we have to have a talk about the third person, which is the person who has potential, but gets up in the morning, makes their bed, gets out and goes and does something to better themselves so that they can build a confidence, have that consistency that we talk about to become more talented. And once you've reached that benchmark of a talent, going out and now finding something else, kind of like when you said you were going to start doing Duolingo, you have the potential to speak Spanish. But in order for you to get there, you have to practice and practice and practice and commit to it. That's that climb up the mountain. And now that you're climbing up the mountain, I guarantee you that you could speak and understand Spanish much better than you did prior to when you just had it as an idea. So now you push yourself to start writing Spanish. You have potential to write Spanish because now you have learned and acquired a skill or a talent of the Spanish language. So now you have potential. So I feel like kind of wrapping all of that and putting into one thought, potential can turn into talent, but talent cannot turn into potential. Well, talent can be used to help your potential, if that makes sense. So your potential can help you become more talented, and your
Yeah.
talents can help you reach other potentials.
So here's, and I guess this is just kind of where, I'm going to go back to a dating aspect, right?
Sure.
I can't tell you how many people would have saved themselves a lot of heartbreak, agony, and pain had they not just looked at the potential of somebody and said, you know what? Instead of looking at the potential, let me look at what's in front of me, what's before me, and let me take it for what it is instead of what it can be. And instead of doing that and cutting their losses early, they went through a tumultuous relationship. And now
Yes.
there's a certain level of trauma that they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives. So when you ask me potential versus talent, I understand that there could be a balance of both, but usually you either lean one direction or the other. So I'm going to lean on the side of, all right, the talented person over the potential of somebody, because potential can lead you to chase things that never transpire. And that was the main reason why I brought up the Andrew Wiggins thing. Or there's 2004, there was a guy named Darko Milicic. Do you know who he is? Clearly you don't, and that's okay, because he was a number one draft pick and he did nothing with his career. Then and you should probably know this one, there was a second overall draft pick. Well, actually, no. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Darko Milicic was number 2. And in that draft pick, there was a guy by the name of LeBron James. Okay, exactly. So LeBron James,
teasing.
he was potential personified that worked so hard to now be being considered one of the greatest players to ever play the game. And I bring this up because Darko Milicic, he was in the same could have been better. But the truth is, like, and I can't tell you how many times I've paid attention to it. Everyone at that time, before LeBron was drafted, they were looking for the next Michael Jordan.
Right.
So instead of, like, I can't tell you how many times you've heard, oh, well, this player could be the next Michael Jordan. This player could be the next Michael Jordan. This player. But there's only been one Michael Jordan. And depending on which side of the argument of who you are, like the greatest of all time, you can argue and go back and forth. But the only thing that you can tell is, at the end of the day, those two stand out above everybody else. And I bring that example up because sometimes you fall, not you, but sometimes we fall prey to, oh, what's next? What's the next big thing? Oh, okay, I want to invest money in Apple. No, but Apple's too expensive. Let's find the next Apple. Oh, no, okay, I want to put money in Microsoft. No, let's find the next Microsoft. What are the chances of finding the next Apple, the next Microsoft, the next Tesla, the next Amazon? The chances are very slim, because you're looking for something that is, you found something or characteristics in somewhere else. And you're basically setting yourself up for failure. And that's the thing that I'm trying to highlight.
But what if Apple was, so you said the future Apple, right? The next Apple.
Yeah.
How do we know that Apple was supposed to make it? Like, that's the thing. Like, okay, go backwards for a second. So if we're looking for the next Apple to invest into, but what about Apple before? That was just a potential. We didn't know Apple was going to be a $3 billion company.
Correct. You're right. We didn't know that. But now that we do know that, But now that we do know that, so if I said, hey, I want you to pick a company to invest in, you can pick Apple, and your money could double. Or let's pick I don't know,
Amazon.
GSAT. No, GSAT. That's an actual company. They produce satellites and help with
Mentioned.
like the constellations, or not the constellations, but like how the satellites orbit around like the Earth's atmosphere. You've never heard of them, but they have a company that's pretty interesting, and they have tons of potential. And if things will line up the correct way, you can make more than 1,400 times your money. Which
Well,
one are
that's
you
what I'm
putting your
saying.
money in? Again, like, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just
No,
saying
no, no. But
my
I'm just,
preference.
my argument is that, Apple was a potential at one point in
They
the
were.
stock market history, in the business realm of everything.
Yeah.
So, because enough people believed in it and believed in the dream of Apple, Apple is now the chosen. This is going to be cliche. The pick of the apple that they picked from the bunch.
Yeah.
Apple
It's the
was the
cream of
company
crop.
that, okay, comparatively it could have been nothing, but because people believed in it, which is the reason why people believed in Apple, is because they had a vision, and they had a vision of doing something great. So potential is, yes, there's an aspect of emotion that goes behind it that backs that. However, now you're saying and you're defending Apple to be more of the talented side of it. You're going to choose that has something that has foundation, stability, and that's known because it has developed a skill. It has developed that talent of delivering wonderful, very engineered and intuitive products that have changed the world for better. So I was saying this earlier, is that potential evolves and can evolve, I should say, into talent based off of how much drive, how much influence, and how much belief goes into the back of potential. Because there's a lot of, like you said, there are these players that you're mentioning, and I'm not a big basketball guru, but uh, that's with any soccer player too. I mean, I could talk about soccer. People who believe in these players, they were just potentials. They were just possible best MVPs, won the Golden Boot, or won the series, the All-Star series. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, I personally believe, and I'm not.
Yeah.
This is what I love about our conversations we have like this, is that we see things differently, but we can still bring it to the table. Is that potential with a certain degree of push, drive, belief can redefine the landscape of that talent, and it
Yeah.
evolves into that talent. That's why Apple used to be the Tom Brady. Apple used to be, when Tom Brady was on the bench. Apple used to be Lionel Messi when he was just in practice majority of the time and couldn't get on a team because nobody wanted him. But look where he's now. He's one of probably the best up there, top 3 players in the world. Tom Brady, top NFL quarterback in the country, and it's because he was just a potential, but he took his potential, believed in his potential, and turned it into a talent. So that was what I was saying earlier. It's not just like a one or the other or balancing each other. It's the fact that potential can evolve with the right time, at the right place, or with the right momentum. It can become that talent. But Apple doesn't stop because they reached $1 billion
I think
of asset.
I think the saying is hard work pays off.
Yes.
So if you're not willing to work when you have the potential, then you'll never grow into the person that you were meant to be. And if you have the work ethic and that potential, you're going to find the success that you're looking for. So hard work pays off.
It does.
And what I was more so referencing is somebody who has potential but doesn't work. That has a potential but leans on uses it as a crutch instead of using it like, all right, hey, this is my potential. This is where my ceiling is. Let me work on this and let me fine tune it. Let me get better. It doesn't happen. And I'm just speaking just from experience, right? I think I must have been probably 22, 23 years old. And there was a young lady that I was really into at the time. And she kept her options open and she was very transparent about it. And she said she's dating somebody else, or like not dating, but like talking to somebody else and trying to figure out like which one of us to choose, right? And I remember thinking, I was like, yeah, I mean, the clear choice is me. I've got way more potential. I got way more room for growth. I'm 20. I don't know what this guy has to bring. Versus he has a level of security that he can offer her right then and there that I couldn't offer her in that time. He has a level of financial stability that I can't offer her at that time. And the truth is, even though it hurt my feelings at the time, she went with the sure thing. It worked out for her. They're married now for, I don't know, like 12, 14 years. And like she's happy. And so I'm not saying that you can't take potential and then turn it up like a notch, but it's almost harder to try to go on a long shot versus a sure thing. And we're in a day and age where people are so impatient that they're rushing to do things, that they're trying to take every shortcut, every step, and try to cut through the path of most resistance. They're trying to literally find a way to the front of the line without having to work through it. A lot of people don't really want to waste time on potential. I will admit, to your point, if you don't ever look at the potential of things, you'll miss out on a lot of things. But that's not how people are designed. That's not how people work. And I don't necessarily think it's a good or bad thing, but uh, I could say that you probably limit yourself to a lot of opportunities by not going with the potential. But now the question then becomes is like, how much time do you lean on the potential? How much time do you give to nurture it and to allow it to grow?
But that's the thing. But what if that could be a question to just kind of ponder on. What if the person that is investing in that time, that chooses to lean on that time because you are a potential, right, ends up choosing you because you are making strides, but that person that's making strides now needed that person to be in their life to give them perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that, like, even for myself, I look back on my life and all the experiences that I've gone through. See, I think about what if my parents gave up on me? Kids who are adopted, my parents, I had teachers tell my parents, "Oh, your kid, I don't know, I don't know if he's gonna make it." That's technically a potential mindset. Like, he has a potential of being something, but he might not be, because there is that long shot mindset. And I agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is that for me, like, especially because I understand, like, I had to realize that I am good at being who I am. I'm bettering myself every single day. And just to kind of tie it back into the whole concept of our podcast, being the best version of yourself, striding towards that's just potential. The potential requires other people and yourself to believe in something, whether it's going to turn out or not. Like, the potential of, being a better version of yourself, that's not guaranteed. But along the way, you can develop talents and skills, right, that may help you reach those levels in your life that you're probably trying to accomplish. And I don't know. I think about, and this is just kind of like my closing thought, the whole question between talent and and oh my gosh,
Potential.
potential.
Yes.
I think about potential energy like we did in school. And if I'm not mistaken, potential energy is from the top. It's the energy for the ball. There's a kinetic energy. Maybe I shouldn't bring this idea. I forgot. This is like
I
fifth
know
grade.
where you're going, and I was going to use that as my closing, but I'm glad that you brought it up. So
No,
there's
take
this.
it. You close it. You close it.
So there's this thing called
I lost him. Are you there? I
yeah,
see you. You're back.
yeah. I don't know what happened.
I don't know
So
what
let me
happened
just.
either.
I'm going to close out with this because this is ridiculous. But if you can edit this out. So the last thing I was going to say in closing is you brought up potential energy. Potential energy is energy that has the potential of movement. Kinetic energy is energy that's already moving. And based on the law of inertia, is objects that are already in motion tend to stay in motion, which means that if you have somebody who's talented, who's skilled, and they're already doing the things to get themselves better, to fine tune themselves, to make themselves an expert in their field, you can't say with, at least from my opinion, you can't say with a clean conscience that you can't go with the person that's already in motion. Like the person that's already making strides to become an expert in their field versus the one that has potential. Okay, you have potential, but you play video games all day. Okay, you have potential, but you drink and party a lot. Okay, you have potential, but you smoke a whole bunch too. The person that is working night and day and focused only on one singular thing, or the person that's got tons of potential that doesn't necessarily need to try, but doesn't try at all and gets distracted by a whole bunch of things. Which one makes a better business partner, employee, or anything of that nature? You got to go with the one that's already in motion, and that's just something that I bring it up because it was just something I was thinking about, and I was thinking about like friendships that I have. Um, I had a person reach out to me just recently. I haven't. I was really really close with this person like years ago, and nothing specifically happened or nothing specifically went wrong in terms of us being friends, but the friendship pretty much ended. And I don't know, maybe not on his end, but to me, it pretty much ended because it was like, okay, well, if when I call you, you don't text. When or when I call you, you don't call back. When I text you, you don't text back. So I'm not going to waste my time and energy on that. Like this had potential to be something really good. You could have been a brother of mine, but unfortunately, because to no fault of my own, you're doing stuff, and like we didn't have any falling out. I just kind of just let it just die. I realized that I was keeping the friendship alive, and I realized that I'm not going to waste any of my time anymore on a person that's not seeing or mutually respectful of my time. So, meaning like, hey, bro, let's go catch a movie. We'll be there at 7. Cool. It's now 10 o'clock at night. Missed the whole movie, and it's like, yeah, bro, my bad. Over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. After a while, you got to just say, you know what? That's it. I'm cutting ties. I don't need this in my life. But he reached out. I spoke to him. I have no problem with him, and I can speak to him always. But the only thing is, like, if the intent is to continue a friendship like we had prior, it's not going to happen. And it's nothing against him. It's just I know who he is. A leopard doesn't really change their spots, and I understand who he is. Like, I'm more power to you, and I wish you nothing but best of luck in everything that you do. But it's been almost 8 years since I've last spoken to you, last seen you, and like I'm okay. Like, thank you for checking in. I appreciate you. And that was kind of where the subject kind of like came up, because I was thinking, I was like, man, we used to be like this, like like we were really close, and unfortunately, due to no control of my own, like for the most part, most of my friends, or most of the people that I've had an encounter with, genuinely like my presence. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, okay, so I'm not going to try to have to seek the approval of somebody else. If you don't want me in your life, then that's cool. I'll just let you go.
Right.
So no hard feelings, no animosity. I'm not mad about it. Just I don't have the energy or capacity to spend that on somebody that isn't that worth reciprocating that level of energy and time to. Yes, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, this was an episode by the Best You Nation, and uh, we appreciate you just for tuning in. And we had a different conversation. Let us know what you think. Is something like potential more important than talent? What something that's already there, that's already like the skill set's already there, and like the work ethic's already there, everything's in place, or should we lean more on potential? I'm curious to see what everybody else says. If you can, reach out to us on the Best You Nation on Instagram. And then 24 hours in a day is my Instagram handle. And then I have a TikTok handle 24 hours in a day as well. So whenever you get a chance, like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate you. We love you guys. And we hope to hear from you soon, and hope that you tune in next week. Finn, do you have anything to add?
No, just the only thing is, if you're watching the video, make sure to tune in and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You guys are doing awesome over there and just showing love and support there. Continue to do that. I know we always say love and support, but it's because, the more that people are looking in and you guys can share, you can see us. You could actually feel like you're in the room with Adler and I, even though we're a cross-country podcast, I would say at this point, because we are. But it's nice that we get to be here. But make sure to check it out on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. Subscribe to it. It costs you $0 to be a part of what we're doing here. That's all I got for right now, man.
All right. Take care. Have a good week.
All right, guys. Peace out.